Hello and welcome to another online content video from my Music Humanities class. I'm Brad. Again, we're still in the Viennese classical era now, 1750 to 1800, and we talked about Franz Joseph Haydn and kind of his influence. And I want to take a kind of a time out here and just talk about one of these forms that they're using. We talked about rondo form and things like that. And in particular, I want to go through in kind of some detail sonata form, because that became an increasingly important vehicle for composers. And we're going to be talking especially about a piece by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, who we will be talking about in great detail next time, called Eine kleine Nachtmusik. Oops, can't spell my German here. Nachtmusik, a little night music, okay? This was one of Mozart's earlier pieces, and it was done for basically just for a party. Again, these are very social kind of things. We'll talk a bit more about it at the end. What I want to do is go through the first movement, which is in fact in this sonata form. They also called it often sonata allegro form, because again, the first movement of many of these longer sort of structures was often fast, okay? Speaking of structure, the structure of a sonata allegro, the structure of a sonata is very similar to a fugue. It has an exposition, it has a development, it has a recapitulation, but the way that they filled in that structure is very different. And it's done with that binary form, question and answer, almost very social sounding kind of music, because that's what this was. So what I'm going to do is go through this and just kind of stop and start it and point out the different features along the way. And let me bring up, this is kind of a general diagram of what a sonata allegro looks like. All right. Like I said, it's very similar in a way to a fugue. You've got an exposition, you've got a development, recapitulation, and you've got a coda. And in fact, there's some other similarities. We basically have two themes here, but they're not, this is where the similarity breaks down. It's not like a subject and a counter subject in a fugue where the polyphony was meant to work against each other and work out. These two themes are basically themes of character. Theme one is usually sort of sprightly, kind of very, very out there. And it's always presented in the one. Now, when I say one, that's the tonic, okay? I haven't really explained that very well. Basically, that's the note you construct your key on. Like, that's the note. That's the root. You're playing basically in that kind of harmony, okay? The second theme, sometimes it's a little bit more relaxed. It contrasts in character to theme one. It doesn't contrast necessarily musically, but it contrasts in kind of the way it feels, all right? Again, that social aspect. And that's usually done in the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're going to make a scale based on that. And you're going to make that theme be presented in that, they call it the dominant for some reason, in the 5 degree, the 5th degree, the dominant degree, all right? And all these themes are still binary form. There's your question. There's your answer, okay? So, and I've already given away, you probably recognize this. This is a very famous piece of music. So let's go in and just a couple of questions. Well, I'll get to it when we'll start out with this Eine kleine Nachtmusik here. So there's your binary form, the micro version that's making this theme one. And again, it's very sprightly, very upbeat. He's going to continue to elaborate it a bit more, Now, this is not theme 2. This is just kind of the elaboration of theme 1, because you're still in this sort of tonic area. And it's going to pick up again, and it's now then going to modulate you up to the dominant. Okay, here we go. And now we are, in fact, in that dominant. We're down there. So now we're going to play this again. This is theme 2. Very kind of like relaxed, kind of, bouncy, but not as driving as theme 1 was. Now, I want you to hear those little trilly things, because this is Mozart's genius. He could take little tiny aspects of music and blow them up and make them tie the whole piece together. You're going to hear them come back later. Okay, but we're still in theme 2, okay? Still in theme 2. Okay, so that's the end of the exposition. Now, classically, and still almost always today, you would repeat the whole thing. So I'm just going to let it play through again. It's interesting. There's a famous computer scientist, AI pioneer named Marvin Minsky, who wrote an article in the Computer Music Journal about, it's titled The Sonata as Teaching Machine. And he's basically saying what you're doing as a composer is you're teaching people these kind of two themes and their relationship to each other. And by repeating it, you're kind of solidifying it. You have to bear in mind that people probably heard this piece only once because they didn't have recordings, they didn't have streaming, they didn't have anything like that. So Mozart and Haydn and others, they knew how to get across their music. So let's hear the repeat, and then we're going to go into the development following the repeat. So theme 1 again, and I'll stop talking. Actually, I'm going to interrupt anyhow. I want you to notice that there's a harpsichord kind of plunking away in the background. This is still a throwback to the basso continuo. And in fact, the harpsichord, like I said, it played a fundamental role. Chances are that Mozart played the harpsichord while he conducted this piece. It's the thing that kind of like kept everybody on track. Again, it wasn't really a continuo at this point, but it was still an instrument that could kind of like, bring the orchestra together and make them, play the right thing. So here we go now into theme 2. Theme 2. Okay, so now we've finished the repeat and we're ready to go into the development. And what you're going to hear then is he's going to play theme 1 again, but it's going to be in that dominant key because he's modulated all around. And you're going to hear him now take aspects of theme one and theme two, kind of weave them together, go through various different modulations, and finally get you back to that root and the recapitulation where you play theme one in all its glory again. Now, this is a fairly short development section, but again, listen, I'm going to just kind of play it through and try not to interrupt, but you know, I like to talk. But listen especially to that little trilly violin thing, because he's going to use that to really give this a lot of coherence. Here we go. So already he kind of like messes things up. You know, he's fooling with the notes and he's going to go into a completely new key, a different modulation. It's part of the story. Composers can go to these different keys within the context of one and bring you around to a different place. Yeah, now that's just pure genius Mozart. Again, we're going to, like I said, talk about him in the future. But, you know, just picking up on just little fragments of the music and making these dramatic gestures. And the modulations you went through there, I mean, this is just pretty intense kind of musical stuff. And Mozart, this is very early for him. And now we're at the recapitulation. Again, short development. So let me take it back just a little bit so you can hear how he just launches right back into that theme one. Here it comes. Okay, now we're in theme two, but something's different. He's not playing it in the dominant, he's playing it in the tonic. So it's kind of keeping it on that like home key, because pretty soon you're going to end. Now, this thing, a lot of sonatas at the very end have a little coda where they just kind of elaborate the music and make it kind of end nicely. And you'll hear that in this. It's not long. Again, this is a very, very brief, you know, sonata form. This is a short development. Recapitulation is standard, and the coda is very, very short. Okay, we'll just play it through here. Okay, so now he's leading into the coda. And here it is. And that's the end of Eine kleine Nachtmusik. Normally I would just play the whole thing through so you can enjoy it. It's on the website. Give it a listen. Now, one final thing about this is you have to bear in mind, you know, we hear this as this just incandescent and just luminous and light piece of music that's just wonderful. This was done for a party. From what I understand, the orchestra was actually situated below the balcony upon which the nobles and royals were having champagne, and essentially they were up there just kind of chatting away with Mozart playing his heart out down below them. So what this was Muzak. Mozart was hired to just create background music for their party. Talk about him again in the future.